Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 56th episode of Battles and Voices. I'm Latika, and I'm the founder and host.
And I'm Camden, and I'm the co-host, and we serve on the executive team of Vitals and Voices.
Battles and Voices brings together generations of people involved in healthcare in order to foster a supportive and connected community.
Please welcome our guest, Helen.
Helen, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you on Battles and Voices. To start us off, feel free to kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, of course. My name is Helen Dang. I'm currently a second year medical student at AT University in Arizona. I just finished my preclinicals and I'm about to do board prep studying for step one slash level one, and then going into my rotations coming up, which is very exciting. I am originally from the Bay Area. I'm from San Jose, California, and I went to UC Davis for my undergraduate degree. I majored in neurobiology, physiology, and behavior with a minor in music. I took 2 gap years, really learned how to be an adult as well as do some really fun things outside of volunteering for unhoused individuals and starting my pageant journey in the Miss America organization. Since then, as a second year here in Arizona, I've been able to continue doing the work for unhoused individuals as well as promoting harm reduction in clinical practice at on my campus. And I also decided this last year to re-enter my pageant era, and I'm currently Miss Mesa 2026 and competing in Miss Arizona in June while board prep studying. So I am a little crazy, but I love it, and I'm just so grateful to be here and to share my voice. And thank you both to inviting me here on this podcast.
You're so welcome, and thank you again for coming on today. And wow, it sounds like you've done a lot, and you've dedicated a lot of time to service and advocacy alongside medical school as well. So, what originally inspired you to enter healthcare and focus on these areas specifically?
Definitely. When I was younger, I was uninsured. My dad was laid off during the economic recession in 2008, which is a very long time ago. And throughout that experience, I had to go to free clinics. I had to go to free flu shot centers to be able to get the health care that I needed. And that experience has showed me the value of physicians who care about underserved communities. And in doing so, I had focused on wanting to give back to the communities the same way that those physicians had given back to me. So throughout my middle school to high school to college, I really tried to focus on things that I cared about, which was medicine, science, and service. I did a lot of volunteer work because of just the experiences that I've gone through. I went through housing insecurity and food insecurity when I was younger, and it does not equate the same experiences as those that are unhoused, but it just shows the importance of how we need to be open minded. And I focused on doing that service initiative throughout medical school and throughout throughout college. So that's why I inspired it. And the thing is that when you enter into these spaces where people need the help, especially those that are unhoused, you see how the social determinants of health really affect person's well-being. And as a physician, you can really do your best to gain the trust of your patients and fight for them in spaces that they can't fight for themselves. And that's what really pushed me to go along and to continue this journey. And my goal is to be a doctor that volunteers one of her weekends throughout the month to volunteer at one of these free student run clinics for those that are underserved.
I really love that passion of yours, Helen. And I love how, when you're talking about the struggles and the challenges that you faced, during your childhood eras, I love how you were able to be resilient and shape the student that you are today, and one day shape the future physician that you will be.
Yeah, thanks.
Of
It's really
course.
amazing.
hmm So, as a first generation future physician, how did your early experiences shape the way you approach medicine and patient care today?
Yes, so I think when I was younger, again, I both of my parents were immigrants. They didn't really speak much English, and there were a lot of difficulties with that in terms of healthcare. As someone who was 8 years old, going into a clinical space and then being expected to translate for my mom or my dad when it came to seeing the doctor, it's experiences like those that really show you how the gaps between healthcare arise. And not only that, if you think about it economically, if for me, somebody who didn't have health insurance, the approach is very different when someone is coming in to need the medical attention and they don't have the resources available for them to pay for their medical education. I don't know if you guys watch The Pit. That's like the new show. And it is very applicable to the things that I have dealt with and the things as the that I have dealt with as a patient as well as a medical student, to see patients coming in and not being able to pay for their resources or pay for their medication or be able to visit because they need to go to work. It's experiences like those that make you really take a step outside of the box and meet where the patient is at and be really creative with some of the solutions that you can to treat patients the way that you can. For example, I volunteer at the home clinic, which is an unhoused clinic, an unhoused student run clinic on campus. We work with Midwestern as well, which is another DO program in Arizona. And in doing so, we see unhoused patients at a shelter. And sometimes, so we work as an urgent care, but sometimes, unfortunately, this is the only health care that patients ever have in their lifetime. And so it's important for us to be able to be empathetic and to really take a look at a patient as a whole. And so that's definitely something that I'm trying to promote as a medical student to my peers, to other individuals, to young folk like y'all, and to make sure that people who are interested in medicine, who are interested in advocating for patients in the future, are able to do so and to not in their way, but in the way that the patient needs them to be supported by.
That is incredibly beautiful. So, you work specifically with individuals experiencing house insecurity and in harm reduction initiatives. What motivates you to keep going, especially when situations become challenging?
Yeah, so the hot button topic in medicine and actually in the world right now, I feel like, in my personal opinion, is housing insecurity, people that are homeless or unhoused. And the harm reduction initiative, especially in Arizona right now, there was an initiative that was passed to limit the ability to provide harm reduction services as well as other related uh, health related things like street medicine to meet patients where they're at in the streets without a permit. And it's those challenges that make it really hard for people that are unhoused or people who use drugs to be able to get the health care that they need to survive, right? And it's very difficult to keep going, but when you keep doing it, when you keep volunteering your time and energy, whether it's making a naloxone kit, whether it's sitting and listening to a patient talk about their day, those are you learn so many different stories that are unheard of, that aren't spotlighted in the world. And um, that's what motivates me. For example, I had a patient that had came in and she had severe back pain. And we got to see her and we were able, and the thing is that not only did we get to treat her, but we were able to sit down and talk to her and hear about what's been going on. And she started crying and talked about all the experiences that she's going through. And even though we couldn't help her in that for her to be able to be heard by us is just one thing that made her so happy and so genuinely, like she felt so much better after that experience, and she keeps going to the clinic to this day. And so there are those experiences that keep you motivated, but then there are other experiences like when I was volunteering at an unhoused clinic in Sacramento called the Willow Clinic. I had a patient that had an amputated leg that was infected, and he was having symptoms of sepsis right in front of us. He was deteriorating right in front of us, and he would not let us call 911, and that was the only thing that we were able to do to keep him to survive. And so before we called 911, he had to leave, and because he didn't want to see the emergency room. He didn't want to see any other doctors. And so it's experiences like those where you're like, I don't know if he survived, I don't know if he's passed. And it's up to us as future physicians or future healthcare providers to be able to advocate for these individuals, whether it's something super small to something super big as healthcare on the streets. And you have to keep those stories in mind. It's not about the statistic, it's about those individual stories that keep you going.
Yeah, definitely. And advocating for your patients is something that, we really love. And I love that you have that like type of drive that drives you like every single day to be able to advocate and better serve the patients. So, you mentioned that showing up consistently for people matters more than immediate outcomes. Can you share an experience that reinforced that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the important thing when it, not even just about medicine, but in the community, is that if you just show up and are there for people, that they're going to feel that energy and continue to show up with you. So, for example, I took on a leadership position before medical school. I was the manager of the unhoused clinic, the Willow Clinic in Sacramento. And one of the big things is like when you take on a big project like manager or like president or like any type of leadership position, it's not necessarily about what your goals are. It's what you can help as a leader to get people to their own goals. And so as the manager of the Willow Clinic, I wanted to make sure that we just tried our best, that we showed up for the community, whether it's buying donuts for the doctors or offering coffee for the patients or something small like that, continuously being there and showing up no matter what allows you to make an example for other people to follow in your footsteps. For example, as Miss Mesa this year, my goal was to just be the best version of myself that I can be as Miss Mesa and as a medical student. And so, in doing so, I did a lot of community work. I not only volunteered for the home clinic, I did a bunch of other stuff like street medicine. I helped coordinate a bunch of activities on campus to promote harm reduction. I also volunteered at other events like this walk called Hope Kids Walk, where kids with disabilities or permanent disabilities walk a 5K and we raise money for them and we hand out awards for them. And even to the smallest thing is last night I went to the American Heart Association to help raise money for them in the fight against cardiovascular disease. And just being present, just showing to the community that if I could do it as just one individual, then you can do it too. And so in doing so, not only did I show up, but I grabbed my other friends, I grabbed my peers, and I grabbed my community to make a difference. And you would think that only like sometimes people think, oh, I'm just one person, like I can't do anything, like I can't really make a difference in the world. But all it takes is 1 second. All it takes is 1 minute, 1 hour to really dedicate yourself to a cause, to dedicate you to something that you're passionate about, and people will follow. And that's something that I stand by. And honestly, like it's been such an amazing experience to see other people come up to me and be like, because of you, I'm able to do this. Because of you, I'm able to make a change. And I'm grateful for that. So, yeah.
That is amazing. And that is some amazing work as well. I know I keep saying that it's all amazing and everything, but it truly is amazing because you're doing a lot of work for the underserved. And I can tell you're deeply passionate about harm reduction and health equality. So, can we talk a little bit about why this topic is so important to you and how it aligns with osteo sorry, I might say this wrong,
No, you're good.
osteopathic principles?
Yeah, osteopathic principles. You're good. You're so good. Yeah, so the reason why I'm really passionate about harm reduction is because it overlaps with my passion for serving underserved individuals, especially those that are unhoused. When I continue to work with unhoused individuals, there are a lot of stories that you hear about people overdosing on street drugs, people that lose their life because they don't have access to naloxone, or people get a disease that's deathly that could have been prevented through a safety syringe kit exchange. And it's experiences like those that make me realize like it's important for us to know that saving lives is the only thing that we need to be focusing on when it comes to this. Especially with harm reduction, the whole point is to reduce the harm that is being done. For example, like if a patient is using heroin on the street, or doing some sort of other street drug like horse tranquilizer, fentanyl, anything like that, and they don't have access to a clean needle, and so they use a used needle, they have an increased risk for HIV, hepatitis, all those diseases that could be deadly. And I, as a medical student, I realized that not a lot of people had that experience in undergrad. Not a lot of people know about what harm reduction is. Not a lot of people believe in harm reduction. Some people think that it is enabling people to use drugs, and that's not the case. And I think it is a topic that needs to be talked about and shared upon the community and upon my like other healthcare professionals. Like one of the things that we learn in medical school is how to use naloxone. It's one of the things that could save a person's life from opioid overdose. And that's why it's important to me, because it's not only just naloxone. Like there's so many other things that we can use in our clinical practice to practice harm reduction and to save more lives. And so that is why I'm really passionate about it, because a lot of people that are unhoused, they are unfortunately going through a lot, and they have a lot of these experiences. And because of the difficulty of trusting physicians, um, it is very difficult for them to be able to get their needs met, and sometimes they turn to the streets. And it is up to us as future healthcare providers and future healthcare physicians to meet patients where they're at, see the whole picture, which is what osteopathy is all about: the mind, body, soul, spirit, and see how that relates to health and how we can improve their health, and how we can improve how they're feeling in the long run. And so I think that is something that I want to share about harm reduction and health equity. There's so many limitations to this. Like, for example, if a patient that is unhoused or a patient that uses drugs is faced with, they need to go to a pain management facility, but they don't have access to health care, or they don't have enough money to be able to pay cash pay for a visit. It's like experiences like that that are interconnected. And so at school, as the president of Harm Reduction Club, I that is my goal, is to continue always learning about harm reduction, to be better at first person language, to be better at promoting the use of harm reduction and advocating, fighting the stigma against harm reduction and people who use drugs. And doing so will able to get my peers on board and to save lives. And I think it's very important.
I love
That's
your
that is some great and important work that you were doing. I just wanted to say that real quick. Sorry, Latika.
No, you're good. I definitely agree with Camden as well. It's like so important the work that you're doing. And thank you for, kind of giving us your insight and explaining about harm reduction. That's a topic that I've like never knew about. So
I
I really
know, and
appreciate that.
as a senior in high school, I totally did not know about it either. And
Hmm.
it's like experiences like this podcast, are you able to really know what these things are even before you go into college or anything like that. I only learned about harm reduction in college and then fully cemented it in medical school because it's something that everyone uses but doesn't really talk about. And so it's good that you get to hear what this is and be able to implement that when you go into college and continue your journeys.
Definitely. So, how do you see harm reduction shaping long-term health outcomes and patient trust in communities that often face stigma or systematic barriers?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this, but basically, some of the techniques that people use in harm reduction are naloxone kits that are handed out to help save people from opioid overdose, uh, syringe exchange needle programs where they can exchange their used needles for sterile injection kits to reduce the chances of getting a different uh, detrimental disease, and also providing support, whether it's using first person language, which is very important. Some people don't understand what that is, but it's basically being like making sure that you use the correct terms to describe what's going on. For example, previous years in medicine, they had used the substance use disorder versus substance abuse disorder, right? They're two different terms, two different languages that are one is very polarizing, and the other one is just using um, verbiage to correctly talk about a patient's past medical history. And it's specifically important to be able to use these techniques in harm reduction to allow patients to trust you, to feel like they can share their vulnerability in a clinical space, even when it's difficult to talk about. For example, I volunteer. I do a lot of volunteer work, and I'm very grateful for it. But I volunteered for this organization called Shot in the Dark in Arizona, where it's a site where we hand out naloxone kits, we hand out the needle kits, the syringe needle safety kits. We hand out a bunch of other things as well, like contraception and other things that promote harm reduction. And we'll come in, and one of the questions that we always ask is, have you used naloxone? And was it successful? Meaning, have you used naloxone either on yourself or other people, and did they survive? And it's always, yes, I am so grateful I saved this person's life. And that happened. I can tell you now that out of 1 hour shift, there will be at least 20, 30 people that come. And so if you think about that, 30 people coming in, getting naloxone, getting all those harm reduction tools, saying that they save a life, that's at least 30 lives saved in 1 hour, right? And in doing so and handing out these tools, handing out these resources, we build a trust. We build a ability for patients to talk truly about what's been going on. Yes, I do use opioids and I need help, or yes, I do use opioids. I'm not ready to quit, but I don't want to increase the risk of getting HIV or hepatitis. And so it is up to us in these spaces to be able to build this bridge of trust between patients and physicians. Again, in the pit, there was an experience. There's like an episode where a patient had came in, and the thing is that people who use drugs, it can be anyone. Stereotypically, people think, oh, it's someone who is unhoused, but it could be anybody. And in this episode of the pit, it was this businessman that had came in and um, was wanting a prescription for an opioid just to help with his back pain. And I believe that it was diagnosed that he had substance use disorder or whatever the case may be. And it's like episodes like that or just experiences like that that show that like first person language is important. Being able to meet the patients where they're at is important, and not judging based on the book of a cover. And so I think in general, that is something that I am just wanting to promote, is to show that like long term wise, you save more lives throughout this. And yes, it is a very stigmatized topic, but it's very important for us as future physicians, future healthcare providers, to know that a life is worth being saved no matter what. So that's what I want to share with y'all.
Oh my gosh. I just keep using the same adjectives, I swear, but it's just incredibly like beautiful work, and I think you're doing amazing like promoting all this, and you've helped it so much, like obviously spread a word across campus, and I hope it spreads more while you're a physician in the future as well.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing. Yes, thank you.
Of
And
course.
hopefully you guys learn too.
Hmm. I've never heard it before myself, so hearing it now is amazing. And
Good.
obviously, you're doing amazing work too. So, you've helped build and coordinate student-run medical and OMM clinicals. What impact have these clinics had on patients or on the students that were involved?
Yeah, definitely. So let me give you a little bit of a rundown of what an OMM clinic is. So OMM is osteopathic medical manipulation. And it is basically a bunch of techniques that were taught to us that we could use to help alleviate the balance of the body and to basically help alleviate some of the pain and somatic dysfunction that a patient may have. For example, they could have pain in their shoulder, they can have pain in their back, they can have a chronic nasal congestion, they can have headaches, and we have these extra techniques that are taught in our DO profession to be able to treat that with our hands. And so, on top of that clinic, we host two clinics a month. The medical clinic is the first Saturday. The OMM clinic is the second Saturday. And in doing so, I was able to create the first student-run clinic on campus here at AT Still University for specifically unhoused individuals. And in doing so, I believe we're at around, last year we had treated about 67 patients, and this year it's even more than that. And to also, it allows students to be able to learn use the skills that they learned in the classroom to treat patients and see what their difference makes in a patient's clinical care. And I've seen the growth of how this clinic is. I've seen how patients will come time and time just to come in, check in, and get their care taken care of multiple times. It is something that is just so amazing to see patients be able to build their trust with these physicians, build their trust with these students, and see how us as medical students can gain so much knowledge. I, for one, as the coordinator of the clinic on my school side, was able to see so many cases happen and learn so many different clinical vignettes and see what was written in the textbook in real life. Like, for example, I had a patient that had come in and he had a heart attack. He literally came in, had a heart attack, and we had the physician come in and really go in and take care of the patient right away and call 911 and all these things. And you would think in the textbook, like, you read it and you're like, okay, but when you see it in real life, it's something that's like life changing and you'll never forget about it. And so I feel like that's just one of the impacts that I've realized for myself, but I know that there's so many other individuals that have had so many great things happen.
So, your role as Miss Mesa 2026 gives you a platform beyond your clinical work. How do you use that platform to advocate for healthcare access and equity?
Yes, so as Miss Mesa, I got to compete in a pageant and I got to wear all the hair and makeup. And this is honestly like, I feel like this is like the I live a balanced life as a medical student, like portion of this interview. And it has been such an amazing experience. I feel like a lot of people see the scrubs and they're like, okay, cool. But when they see the crown and sash, they're like, wait, okay, cool. And in doing so, you're able to be able to have different connections and conversations with people that you'd never think that you would have. So, for example, I had this really awesome event at the American Heart Association Lobby Day at Arizona State Capitol, and I got to meet one of the state senators, Senator Farnsworth, and promote healthcare access, especially to those that are in elementary schools, knowing how to deal with a cardiac crisis and fighting for that bill. And so it's experiences like those that you're able to really share your experience as a medical student and use it in a different way. As Miss Mesa, I also get to do a lot of other things as well, like not only promote about my community service initiative, which is advocacy and action for the houseless, but also promote other people's experiences and share a spotlight about their stories. I talk a lot about my experiences at home clinic there, and I even got to share my experiences to like other state title holders, and it's been really a great experience to be able to use this platform and to talk to the community directly about it. Yes, I feel like medical school is a bubble, and sometimes when you are sitting there in that space, you tend to just talk to your peers and you forget that there's a world outside. But as Miss Mesa, you're able to talk to Mesa residents, talk to Arizona residents about things that you feel passionate about, and that's been the best part.
That is some amazing work that you're doing. And finally, what advice would you give to students or aspiring healthcare providers who want to combine medicine with advocacy and community service?
Yeah, so my biggest advice is if you want to do it, then you can do it. You and if you have the passion for it, to put your all into it and to do it right. I think a lot of things when it comes to medicine is that you're very hard on yourself and you're like, okay, like I don't think I'll be able to do this. I don't think I'll be able to get on a stage, sing a song, answer an onstage question, do an evening gown portion, and then go past 7 exams for finals week. Like it's literally impossible. But I think if you put your mind to it, if you really take a step back and be like, I am awesome. I can do anything. And if I put my mind to it, then I can do it. Then honestly, like that's the best thing that you can do for yourself. I personally think that community service makes you a better physician, makes you a better healthcare provider. And in doing so, you're able to hear the stories of the community and use those experiences to be a better doctor. And also, as a future healthcare provider, to make sure that you know what the balance of life is, to do things outside of medicine, to be able to remind yourself that there's a world outside of medicine and that you can continue living your life past that.
That is some amazing advice. And thank you so much, Helen, for sharing your journey and the insights into harm reduction, patient centered care, and advocacy in medicine.
Your story is such a powerful reminder that healthcare is not just about treating illness, but also trust, dignity, and showing up for the people who need it the most.
And to everyone tuning in today, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode of Vitals and Voices. Your support truly means the world to us.
If you enjoyed this conversation, then be sure to follow, share, and stay tuned for more episodes of Battles and Voices.
We'll see you next time.